So we've probably done way too many pancake videos on this channel already, if there's such a thing. In some countries, when they think of pancakes, what actually comes to mind is a very large, circular, and thin shape that's filled with both savory or sweet ingredients. So today is all about la crêpe. So my father is actually from a small town called Douarnenez in the Finistère Sud in the Brittany region of France. Brittany is said to be the place where crepes were born in the 13th century. Now, before they were popularized all over the world in little stands and restaurants where they fill it with whipped cream and fruits and sauces, crepes were all about simplicity. There are two main categories that people usually talk about in that region. The first being au sarrasin, au blé noir, which is usually called a galette, which is crepes made with buckwheat flour, so better for savory fillings. And the second category is called les crêpes au froment, which is the type of flour that's used. And again, the froment ones are used for sweet fillings. So we're first gonna start with les galettes au sarrasin, which is probably one of my favorites. So really interesting, she's saying once it's like all together and nice and smooth, so make sure to beat it to add more oxygen. She says the more you beat it, the better it actually is. That's my favorite part, when she says she needs a little bit of saindoux, un petit peu de saindoux. Saindoux is like lard, so it's basically pork fat. And she's mixing that with egg yolk, and that's what she's gonna use on her crepe pan. And when she says a little bit, there's this like whole clump that falls into it. So what she's saying here, which is really important, is you have to do it slowly. She's not even doing it with the whisk. And she's making sure that there's just no like lumps in it. And so that's why she's doing it really, really slowly. So if you're from North Brittany, you will be making this with just some water, and if you're from the South, you'll probably be adding some milk and even some regular flour to the mix. Every traditional creperie will have their own little tips and secrets, proving that it's a pretty adaptable recipe. For our mix, we're gonna use 600 grams of buckwheat flour with 120 grams of all-purpose flour. I like to beat that first with the eggs and then slowly incorporate about 100 centiliters of milk and 50 centiliters of water and some coarse salt. You really want to mix this properly since buckwheat doesn't have gluten, so that way there are no lumps and it becomes smooth. Beat it repeatedly until nice and supple, making sure to aerate it in the process. The batter we're looking for here is very liquid and very thin compared to your regular thick pancake batters. I leave mine out about 4 hours before using it. Even better, you could also leave this overnight. So that's the traditional equipment that they use for crepes. Obviously, not a lot of us have that. So I'm just gonna be using like flat pan on an induction burner. Once your mix is ready, heat up and grease your pan with some butter. And since we don't have the proper equipment, find the right amount to put in your ladle to test it on the pan. You're gonna drop that straight into the pan and make sure to very quickly move it around in a circular motion to spread the mix thinly before it sets. Now this won't give you the most evenly thin crepe, but it's good enough. You want to cook this until set on one side and then flip it to just give it a bit of color on the other side for a minute. You can then place your filling in at this point or set them aside and use them over the next couple of days while being stored in the fridge. Now for the filling. There are so many ways of eating this. Some classic ones include la crêpe complète, which is basically egg, ham, and cheese. Place your cooked crepe in a pan with some butter on low heat. Crack in your egg. Once almost set, you can do that by kind of shaking around the whites, placing your cheese and ham. You can either fold it like this or roll it up. Basically, it's ready once the cheese is melted and the egg whites are cooked. You could also do a mushroom, egg, and cheese variation and even opt to break the yolk for a couple of seconds before rolling and finishing. That way it spreads evenly inside the crepe itself. Even though this is really meant for savory fillings, if you like that sweet and salty combination like I do, you could make it with some bananas and some peanut butter. It's really up to you.
Possibly one of my favorite things to eat in the world. It'll always remind me kind of like my second home in France, Brittany. And what I love is you can use it, and I actually prefer using them not fresh, but the next day. They're a bit more pliable, and they don't get as crispy in the pan. But at the end of the day, it comes down to how you like to eat it. These are so good. I'm gonna steal the peanut butter one because Anne is breastfeeding, so I can try it. She's supposed to be eating it. Okay, I got it. This looks delicious. Listen, there are rules in cooking, but these are one of those rules that, yeah, Brittany, maybe they'll use buckwheat crepes mostly for savory dishes, but with sweet dishes, I actually think it brings a whole new dimension to the dish. And for those of you who like that balance of sweet and salty, using a sarrasin or blé noir crepe for a sweet preparation is just as good. Who came up with these rules? At the end of the day, you're the one that's eating it at home. So you decide what you want to make and how you want to alter it. Hopefully she doesn't notice.
Now time for our crepe au froment. This batter is easier to put together. 300 grams of all-purpose flour, unbleached if possible, 50 grams of sugar, 4 eggs, and 60 centiliters of milk. Start off by mixing the eggs and the sugar, and then slowly add in the flour and the milk. All this gets beaten together until smooth. You can use this right away, applying the same techniques as before. My favorite way to eat this is just with some slightly brown butter, some brown sugar, and then a squirt of lemon to finish on the plate. I remember eating tons of these as a kid at my grandparents' house, and even till today, when I smell it, it really brings me back to that moment in time. Or you could do the ever popular Nutella crepe and even add in some fruit and fold it in 4 so it looks a little fancy. Extra Nutella and powdered sugar, please. Or if you want to be really extra, make at least... Or if you want to be really... Dahlia. Or if you want to be... Dahlia. Or if you want to get really extra, make at least 20 crepes, whip some cream until stiff, and then start layering the crepes with some cream and some sliced fruit until you've used up all your crepes and you've got a simple crepe cake. Pretty to look at, but I personally like to keep it simple.